Welcome to Book Summary Podcast, your gateway to personal transformation. Each episode delivers big ideas from the world's most impactful books on mindset, productivity, and success, all in just a few minutes. Ready to turn knowledge into action? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to get you truly well-informed. Today we're tackling a proverb that's echoed through generations, striking fear into the hearts of many. Shirtsleeves to shirtsleeves in 3 generations. It's this idea that wealth, once created, just disappears. It dissipates within a family. But what does keeping it in the family really mean to you? Is it, just about the money, or is there something far deeper at play?
It's a really profound question, isn't it? It goes straight to the heart of what we value. And it's precisely what we're exploring today. We're taking a deep dive into complete family wealth, drawing from the powerful insights of the book, Complete Family Wealth 2 by James E. Hughes, Susan E. Massenzio, and Keith Whitaker.
Right. And our mission today really is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, the surprising facts from this very thought-provoking work. We're offering you a kind of shortcut to being truly well-informed about a topic that, as you'll discover, goes way beyond just bank accounts.
Exactly. This isn't merely about financial statements. It's about well-being, purpose, and the deeply human story woven through generations.
Yeah, the human side.
And look, as with any comprehensive guide offering advice and strategies, the authors themselves, they recommend consulting specialists where appropriate. Our discussion here is focused on conveying the rich ideas and frameworks presented within the material itself, not, endorsing specific financial actions.
Exactly. So get ready to maybe rethink everything you thought you knew about family wealth. We'll be uncovering the surprising distinction between qualitative and financial capital, the subtle but immense challenges of inherited wealth, the true purpose of a trust, and the profound impact of family culture. As the ancient philosopher Thales wisely noted, to advise another is very easy. To know yourself is very hard.
Ah, yes, very true.
This deep dive will certainly invite some personal reflection, I think. Okay, so let's unpack this core misconception right away. When we hear that shirtsleeves to shirtsleeves proverb, our minds almost automatically jump to money, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Like fortunes lost, businesses crumbling, bank accounts dwindling. It's a very kind of visceral fear.
It is, and the book brings this home with some powerful anecdotes, really illustrates just how deeply ingrained this fear is. J. Hughes' own mother, for instance, lived with this fear every single day. Her grandmother, a single, cosseted child, had to work for 50 years after her father's bankruptcy just to provide for her family.
Wow.
Yeah. This was a direct, lived experience of the proverb's devastating impact.
That's incredibly impactful. And it's not just a Western concept, is it? The book shares a similar story from a successful Singaporean businessman who confessed, "We Chinese have a proverb, rice paddy to rice paddy in 3 generations. He said, "I don't want that to happen to my family. Can you help us?" This really highlights the universal emotional weight of this fear. Cuts across cultures, continents.
And what's truly fascinating here, the key takeaway, is that both of these stories illustrate the book's central revelation. The thing to be kept in the family is not just money. It's the family's well-being. The authors capture this distinction so powerfully with a quote from a family leader who recounted her grandmother saying, "Our family has always been rich and we've sometimes had money."
Ah, I love that. Always been rich, sometimes had money.
Yeah.
That really makes the point, doesn't it? Qualitative wealth can exist, even flourish, when financial capital ebbs and flows.
Precisely. So it's about much more than just the numbers in an account. Which brings us to what the authors call complete family wealth, a concept beautifully illustrated by their qualitative capital wheel.
Right, the wheel. Let's dig into that.
Okay, so this model helps us understand the 5 crucial forms of qualitative capital that truly define a family's well-being. Think of them as a portfolio almost of different kinds of wealth.
Okay.
First, there's human capital. This is the unique wealth residing in individual family members, their talents, knowledge, skills, health, even their sense of purpose. It's the very foundation, really, upon which everything else is built.
The people themselves. Makes sense.
Then you have legacy capital. This defines the family's core values, its shared purpose, and what the authors call the family brand. It's what makes a family distinct and gives members a shared identity, a sense of belonging to something meaningful.
The what we stand for part.
Exactly. Third is family relationship capital. This is the glue that holds everything together, the bonds of trust, respect, fairness, open communication among family members. Without strong relationships, well, other forms of capital really struggle to thrive.
The connections, okay.
Fourth, structural capital. This refers to the essential governance structures, policies, practices that enable effective decision-making. It's the framework, the how we operate, that allows the family to act cohesively, intentionally.
The mechanics.
And finally, social capital. This is the family's commitment to and engagement with communities beyond itself. This outward focus provides strength, connecting them to the larger world, serving something greater.
So it's a really powerful reframing. Financial capital as a means to cultivate all these other capitals rather than the end goal itself. That sort of flips traditional thinking on its head, doesn't it?
It really does. Financial capital, while obviously essential, primarily serves as a tool. It makes possible things like quality healthcare, education, philanthropy. It provides the time and opportunities for families to actually come together and connect.
Right.
And from the perspective of individual happiness, the authors suggest it's actually the least important fifth of complete family wealth.
The least important fifth. Wow.
Yeah. The ultimate goal, then, is to identify, inventory, and grow this true, complete wealth, transcending mere money, benefiting family members and their communities, and, maybe addressing some historical criticisms of inherited wealth along the way.
It's remarkable how rigorously we track our financial capital down to the penny sometimes. But the book suggests there's this whole other universe of capital that's rarely measured. How do families even begin to track something as intangible as, say, their relationships or values?
That's the core issue, isn't it? They almost never do. And this neglect, in the author's view, is the principal cause for the failure of family flourishing. I mean, can you imagine any successful enterprise not tracking most of its capital? It's unthinkable.
Right.
So the authors, through Wise Counsel Research, they developed this fascinating framework called Family Qualitative Capital Management, or FQCM. Think of it like a yearly qualitative health checkup for your family.
Okay, FQCM. How does that work in practice?
Well, it's essentially a three-step process. First, every family member completes an online family balance sheet. It's pretty quick, maybe 20, 30 minutes. It assesses their scores, their perceptions, across those 5 qualitative capitals.
Okay, individual scores.
Then these individual responses are aggregated into a family qualitative capital report. This highlights the family's collective strengths, weaknesses, and crucially provides actionable recommendations for individuals and the family as a whole.
Makes the invisible visible.
Exactly. And the third step is vital. An annual meeting where the family reviews this report and decides on a qualitative action plan. So specific objectives like maybe enhancing cross-generational communication or educating the rising generation or creating needed governance structures. It makes it concrete.
So FQCM makes the qualitative measurable actionable. How does that compare to, traditional financial wealth management?
Well, the crucial difference, and this is key, is that while financial wealth management is a means to an end, like security or comfort, qualitative capital is both a means and an end.
Okay, explain that.
Strong qualitative capital enables families to do more work effectively together, make good decisions, sustain their wealth over time. But perhaps more importantly, it allows them to be more healthier, happier, and more fulfilled in their individual lives and with each other. It promotes true wealth as well-being.
All of this really leads to a fundamental question. What is family? We often think of it purely in terms of blood or genetic lineage, but this deep dive takes a much broader view, right?
It absolutely does. Flourishing families, as the book describes them, define themselves as families of affinity. They aren't limited by bloodline. Instead, they see themselves as linked by a common mission, a shared purpose, and a sense of differentness. They recognize that acting altruistically for the good of others is actually key to their own well-being.
Interesting. So who does that include?
Well, this inclusive definition embraces members through marriage, partnership, spiritual relationships, mentorship, friendship, shared service like in a family business or philanthropy, and even trusted advisors who've truly proven their commitment over time.
Right.
This broader, more inclusive definition is crucial because it truly underpins effective family dynamics and governance. It allows for a more robust, more resilient family unit capable of weathering storms together.
Okay, now we get to the really human side of wealth. For the rising generation, inheriting significant financial capital. Well, it can often impede the natural tendency for young adults to rise, as the book puts it, and establish their own identity. It's a huge challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's often captured by what the authors call the black hole metaphor. You have this larger-than-life founder, maybe, whose accomplishments and dreams become so dominant that everyone else, sometimes for generations, seems to shrink to insignificance in comparison. The book paints a really vivid picture of how people react, sometimes in fascinating, sometimes self-defeating ways.
Like what?
Well, you might see the dutiful steward who focuses only on stewardship, sacrificing personal dreams for the sake of the family legacy. Or Froggy, who gets slowly cooked, softened by wealth's comforts, nice houses, vacations, toys, until they can't bring themselves to jump out and force their own path.
Froggy, wow.
Yeah. Or even the grand giver, who repudiates wealth by giving it all away, but potentially ends up with regrets and broken relationships down the line. The core insight here is how wealth can, sometimes surprisingly, trap rather than free people. It complicates their journey to self-discovery.
These are such vivid, almost archetypal descriptions of the different ways inherited wealth can shape or even warp an individual's journey. So what's the antidote? What's the solution to this black hole?
The solution is fundamentally psychological. It's individuation. This means establishing your own sense of identity, your unique skills, knowledge, character, purpose, separating your identity in a healthy way from the founder or your parents.
So not cutting ties, but finding your own space.
Exactly. Importantly, it doesn't mean radical individualism. It's about maintaining a mature connection, finding that balance of separateness and connectedness with your family. The challenge is that the economic freedom that comes with wealth can remove the necessity, the external pressure that often drives personal development for others, making the path less clear.
Let's talk about the big reveal. That moment parents often agonize over, telling their kids about the wealth. The book suggests the real challenge isn't when to tell them, but what do we do after? That seems like a really profound shift in thinking.
It's a critical point, yeah. The big reveal itself isn't usually much of a reveal. Most kids, especially older ones, they kind of know their families have money.
Right, they sense it.
Exactly. It's more of a confirmation, a meteor, as the book calls it, that makes it real. And its true impact often becomes evident years, maybe even decades later. And the after is harder because, honestly, receiving wealth well can be far more challenging than giving it well.
Why is that?
Well, givers often made or at least control their money, so they have agency. Recipients, however, face this immense challenge of living well when the economic necessity that motivates most people is suddenly removed. What drives you then? How do you find purpose?
That's why the book proposes this, well, pretty radical idea.
Yeah.
The recipient should take a long pause regarding the money, essentially saying not yet to engaging with it.
Right. Live as if the money doesn't exist, at least for a significant period. Focus instead on making a good life by your own demanding standards of excellence, whether that's becoming a great farmer, a dedicated sculptor, a respected academic, whatever your path is.
That takes incredible resolve, I imagine.
It requires immense resolve, yeah. Against the softness wealth can offer, against the temptation of false responsibility feeling you must manage the money immediately, and against the fear of making mistakes with it. It's about having the courage to choose a life not defined by wealth, but by your own destined path, and cultivating what the authors call a learning mindset.
So how do individuals actually do that? Continue or begin this process of rising?
Well, they can look to the 4 C's we touched on earlier: control, commitment, challenge, and community. These are really key to building self-efficacy and resilience. They directly oppose those feelings of powerlessness, alienation, threat, and isolation that wealth can sometimes bring.
How so?
Well, finding work that challenges you and meets others' needs, whether it's paid or voluntary, builds strength and commitment. Cultivating quality relationships provides community. Practicing clear communication, like actually asking parents or grandparents about their expectations regarding the wealth, approaching them thoughtfully, gives you a sense of control.
And finding your dreams.
Yeah, the authors emphasize that dreams don't usually become instantly clear. They emerge with time, effort, exploration. It's a journey, much like the one C.P. Cavafy describes in his poem Ithaca. The journey itself is the reward.
And this journey of rising, it isn't just for young adults, right? The book points out that it often extends into what they call the middle passage of life for those in their 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s.
Precisely. At this stage, the challenge often involves not just completing individuation, but also addressing Erikson's dilemma of generativity versus stagnation. Generativity, that sense of giving back, using one's experience for the benefit of others, becomes a powerful antidote to feeling stuck or stagnant.
So finding purpose beyond yourself.
Exactly. Seeking support networks, practicing active ownership of one's life, and reflecting on questions like, am I free or dependent? Or have I found meaningful work? Or can I express gratitude? These are crucial at this point. It's about ensuring you're leading your life, not the life you think others expect you to lead because of the wealth.
Okay, let's shift perspective now to the parents. How can they navigate this incredibly complex landscape, especially when it comes to giving?
The book really emphasizes that there's an art to wise giving. It makes a critical distinction between mere transfers and true gifts.
Okay, transfers versus gifts.
Yeah. Most estate planning, let's be honest, focuses on transfers moving assets around, primarily for tax minimization. But true gifts, as the Roman philosopher Seneca observed centuries ago, carry spirit. They embody intention.
Like what?
Like promoting a recipient's education or reminding them of a loved one's affection or supporting their entrepreneurial venture. Gifts foster growth and freedom for both the giver and the recipient. Transfers, lacking this spirit, can inadvertently weaken identity, foster dependency, undermine relationships.
So it starts with the giver, right? That know thyself idea again.
Absolutely. Givers must reflect on their own motivations. What do you want to achieve with this gift? Does it truly reflect your values? Does it bring you joy, or is it driven by something else, like guilt? This introspection is critical for avoiding what the authors call grantor's remorse, or making gifts out of a sense of obligation or guilt, maybe for not spending enough time with children when they were younger.
And then considering the recipient's perspective.
Hugely important. The book uses that meteor analogy again. Every gift is like a meteor entering the recipient's atmosphere. What spirit does it carry? Love, guilt, freedom, control. Understanding the recipient's age, their stage of development, their temperament, their character, is it formed or still developing, is vital for determining what to give, when to give it, and how to give it. Giving a large sum to a very young or maybe unformed individual will have a vastly different impact than giving it to a mature, self-sufficient adult.
Which leads to that age-old question for parents. How much is enough? And the thorny issue of fair versus equal.
Yeah, these are the huge questions, aren't they? First, the book stresses, parents must clarify how much is enough for you, for their own lives, their own giving, their desired legacy. Then they can think about the children. And while children certainly have different needs and abilities, the reality is that unequal financial gifts often lead to deep hurt, resentment, and conflict that can last for generations.
So the recommendation is generally.
The book generally recommends following the path of equality for financial gifts, unless there are very specific special circumstances, like a child's disability or dependency, and those reasons are clearly, openly, and compassionately communicated and understood by all the children.
Okay, communication. Here's where it becomes absolutely vital, but it feels like this is often where families stumble the most.
Oh, indeed. As George Bernard Shaw famously quipped, the greatest enemy to communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Parents often wait too long, they share too little, they create this taboo around money. But this silence comes with a real opportunity cost. The book advocates for proactive communication plans, using things like simple one-page summaries of trusts or estate plans, sharing information about the existence of trusts, not necessarily the dollar amounts initially, just to gauge reactions and start the conversation.
And this doesn't mean giving up control.
Not at all. Discussing prospective gifts doesn't mean ceding control. Parents always retain the right to change their minds. And starting small can be a really powerful learning tool. There's a great example in the book of a parent giving her college freshman daughter $10,000 intended for 4 years of expenses.
Uh-oh, how long did it last?
4 months. But rather than criticizing, the mother used it as a learning opportunity. They worked together on a budget, the daughter got a job. It became a valuable lesson in financial responsibility, especially during that emergent adulthood phase where mistakes are actually crucial for learning.
Grandparents also play such a critical role, but they face their own unique challenges, don't they?
They really do. The book shares the dilemma of Frank, a grandfather planning to skip his children's generation entirely to save taxes, leaving money directly to his grandchildren in trust.
Sounds tax efficient.
Technically sound, perhaps. But this plan conflicted deeply with his core value of autonomy because it completely excluded his own children from the decision-making process about their own children's future.
Ah, I see.
So the key lessons here are, first, ensure your actions are consistent with your stated values. Second, have crucial communication with your children, the parents, because they ultimately have more influence over the grandchildren's lives. And third, learn from your children and their spouses. They know the grandchildren best.
And beyond financial matters.
Beyond finances, grandparents are natural storytellers. And these stories about work, care, failures, triumphs, they forge incredibly powerful bonds and convey deep values, often long before the financial details are even known or relevant. It's invaluable legacy capital.
Now, on to spouses. Let's be honest, talking about money with your partner can be a minefield, especially when there's fiscal inequality involved. The book acknowledges that very real dynamic, the guilt the wealthier spouse might feel, or the fear of being taken advantage of that the other might experience. It's a deeply human challenge.
It's undoubtedly one of the toughest areas, yes. The keys to success here, the book argues, are things like positive regard and empathy. Really allowing the relationship to grow without money being the central focus, valuing all contributions, not just financial ones, and also ensuring each party feels self-sufficient and competent, understanding their own identity and having a grasp of the family's finances, being able to speak confidently with advisors.
And what about when it comes to supporting other family members financially?
Yeah.
Loans, gifts.
That's another tricky area. Couples must unite on these decisions. They need to clarify the motivations. Is it genuine need or is it enabling self-interest? And critically, they need to set clear written terms. Avoid those disguised loans that inevitably cause conflict down the road.
This raises an important question. How do couples even begin to have these potentially fraught conversations productively?
Well, a colleague, Charles Collier, drawing from his work with many families, recommends a really useful 3-step process for these wealth conversations. It's quite structured.
Okay, what is steps?
Step 1, clarify individual views. Each spouse independently reflects on their own values, dreams, options regarding wealth without self-editing. Just get it all down. Step 2, share clarity. They then take turns listening actively to each other without interruption, just trying to understand, identifying differences and agreements. It's often an iterative process.
Listening without judging.
Exactly. And step 3, decide as a couple. From this shared understanding, a path forward usually emerges naturally, leading to shared action or at least shared communication. This process, though it takes time and vulnerability, significantly strengthens the relationship itself.
And circling back to family meetings, it sounds crucial to include spouses, particularly as they are the parents of the rising generation.
Absolutely essential. Excluding a spouse from learning about the family enterprise, the family wealth, makes it incredibly difficult for them to be an effective partner in raising children amid those circumstances. It breeds misunderstanding and resentment.
And for blended families?
For blended families, this 3-step process needs tailoring. Focus first on principles as a couple. Then, solicit input from children and stepchildren, maybe individually or collectively. And finally, communicate the plans with unwavering empathy, ideally addressing these sensitive plans while all parties are still alive and can participate.
As families become increasingly multi-generational, the role of elders becomes more and more vital, not just as older individuals, but as, potential sources of wisdom and guidance. The book describes it beautifully. Old age hath yet its honor and its toil.
It's a lovely quote. And an elder in this context isn't just someone old. They're defined by developed qualities and specific roles they play within the multi-generational family enterprise. They offer 4 crucial gifts to the family.
4 gifts.
Yes. First, storytelling, providing that distinct family identity and fostering what the book calls 7-generation thinking. Second, they serve as the family's memory, reminding leaders of agreed-upon rules, values, and goals, keeping the family grounded. Third, elders are often adept at mediating disputes, offering informal, non-legalistic conflict resolution. And fourth, they bring the gravitas needed for conducting rituals, those moments that combine play and seriousness and mark transitions.
So what defines such an elder? The authors give us the 4 Ds. Sounds like a set of superpowers for wisdom.
You could say that. The 4 Ds are discernment, the ability to sift through complexity, suspend judgment, see similarities and differences clearly. Discretion, which is about deep listening, knowing when to intervene or just let the system work itself out, weighing words carefully for the future. Discipline, that internal control that upholds shared norms and leads to freedom. And discovery, meaning prioritizing assessment, learning from family members, seeking external wisdom when needed. These qualities elevate them beyond just being an older person. They become a true compass for the family.
How can families then formalize this essential elder role, make it part of the structure?
2 key practices are suggested. The first is creating a wisdom council. This is conceived as a special part of the family governance system, separate from the executive council. It acts as the keeper of accumulated wisdom, the stories, history, values, vision. It advises on disputes and functions almost like a judicial branch. Importantly, it advises and mediates, but doesn't act unilaterally or without invitation.
And the second practice.
The second is reframing the trust protector as a trust champion. This is a specific, mediative role, often suited for an elder, focused squarely on the human relationships within what the book calls the trustscape, the dynamic between the grantor, trustee, and beneficiary.
So less about legal oversight, more about relationships.
Exactly. The trust champion encourages annual conversations between trustee and beneficiary, mediates disputes by asking parties how they contributed to the issue, and holds the power to remove and replace a trustee if there is an impasse, but only if requested by the beneficiary. This role is distinct from a super trustee focused on distributions. Its focus is purely on the human dynamics and ensuring the trust relationship works. It's non-fiduciary regarding distributions.
Let's talk more about trusts themselves because, as you mentioned, they're often seen as confusing, opaque, and frankly, a burden. The book claims over 80% of beneficiaries feel this way, often turning trusts into those black holes we discussed.
It's a shocking statistic, isn't it? And what's truly insightful here is that the problem often isn't the legal structure itself, but the failure to focus on its human consequences. Trustees and beneficiaries must shift their mindset. They need to actively work to improve the human impact, ensuring trusts embody human relationships, not just legal obligations.
So changing the narrative around trusts.
Precisely. The book asks readers to reflect. What are your narratives about trusts? Trustees, beneficiaries, giving, receiving. Only about 10% of wealth holders initially view a trust as primarily a meaningful relationship. But legally and practically, it is a relationship among grantor, trustee, and beneficiary. The documents are secondary supports for that relationship.
I like the idea of drawing your trustscape.
Yes. Drawing a picture of your trustscape, visualizing all the relationships, maybe multiple beneficiaries, co-trustees, protectors, advisors, can make this often abstract system suddenly visible and tangible. It helps everyone understand the web of connections, and it reinforces that gift versus transfer idea. Most trusts are set up as transfers. The goal should be to create gifts with spirit.
And the idea of a trust creator versus just a trust signer seems very important here for embedding that spirit.
It's a crucial distinction. Most grantors are merely trust signers, putting their name on a complex document they might not fully grasp or haven't imbued with their values. A trust creator, in contrast, takes the time to ensure the documents truly reflect the spirit of their gifts.
How do they do that?
This might involve writing a personal letter of wishes to the trustee, adding a preface to the trust document itself, creating an ethical will, or even just writing a personal summary. It means moving beyond generic health, education, maintenance, and support clauses. A trust creator might specify purposes for distributions that align with family values, like supporting productivity, specific types of education, entrepreneurship, family unity initiatives, or legacy projects. It's about truly embodying the grantor's dreams for the beneficiaries.
So it's not enough for the grantor to be intentional. Trustees and beneficiaries need to be activated as well, step up to their roles.
Precisely. It's a two-way, or really three-way street. The trustees' work involves proactively cultivating strong relationships, communicating clearly and often, being empathetic, really understanding and clarifying the trust's purpose, educating themselves and the beneficiaries, and ultimately guiding and empowering beneficiaries.
And the beneficiary's role.
The beneficiaries' work includes educating themselves about their duties and the trust details, understanding the mission behind the money, knowing the trustees' responsibilities, getting a handle on basic portfolio theory, making it a point to meet annually with trustees, and advocating thoughtfully for themselves and their dreams, strengths, and hurdles.
And you mentioned gratitude earlier.
Yes, that simple yet profound act of expressing gratitude is essential for completing the gift cycle. It acknowledges the relationship and the spirit behind the gift.
This all leads to a new way of structuring trusts, moving away from a traditional, often hierarchical model towards what the book calls a more humane trustscape. Can you describe how that works? What does it look like?
Okay, so picture the traditional trustscape, maybe figure 9.2 in the book.
Yeah.
Often you have the institutional and individual co-trustees sort of positioned above the beneficiary, maybe a vague trust protector off to the side. It feels very top-down. The humane trustscape, shown in figure 9.3, completely flips this. The beneficiary is placed firmly at the center. The goal is to achieve control without ownership, which protects the assets legally while granting the beneficiary significant influence and agency over their life supported by the trust.
Okay, beneficiary at the center. Who supports them?
Supporting the beneficiary is something called a distribution committee. or sometimes a single distribution advisor. Think of them as an advisory board for the beneficiary. Their sole function is to advise the trustee on distributions, drawing on their deep knowledge of the beneficiary's needs, dreams, character, and circumstances. Crucially, they aren't fiduciaries for the money itself. Their loyalty is to ensuring the trust truly serves the person at its heart.
Got it. And the other roles?
You still have the trust champion, that elder or trusted friend acting as a mediator we discussed earlier, ready to step in if disputes arise between the beneficiary and the trustee. And finally, the institutional trustee acts as the essential backbone, focusing on strong administration, investment oversight, regulatory compliance, and importantly, heeding the advice of the distribution committee.
So it's a more collaborative, relationship-focused model.
Exactly. This model aims to transform trusts from potentially burdensome legal structures into true blessings, embodying grantors' dreams to enhance lives and fostering healthy human relationships, not just managing assets according to rigid legal terms.
Okay, let's broaden the focus. If a family intends to work together across generations to grow all forms of capital, not just financial one, then what they create is essentially a family enterprise. We mentioned the three-circle model earlier: family, owners, management. The book really highlights how critical it is for that family circle to be the largest, to ensure inclusion and connection remain paramount.
That's right. Conflicts inevitably arise when one circle dominates. For example, if the ownership circle's drive for financial preservation accidentally excludes spouses from critical discussions, impacting family harmony. Or if the management circle keeps unprofessional family members at arm's length, causing resentment. The model is useful because it helps families visualize where they're actually putting most of their effort and attention.
So the ideal isn't necessarily equal circles.
Not necessarily. Ideally, for long-term multi-generational success, the family circle should be the largest. This ensures members connect outside of just business or wealth discussions, facilitates broad communication about financial capital, and creates a shared identity that honors the family's capital without excluding members who aren't directly involved in management or ownership decisions.
And this ties directly into the concept of active ownership, doesn't it? It's not just about holding shares.
Indeed. Active ownership, the book argues, is not just a legal matter, but perhaps even more a moral one. It's about taking responsibility for yourself, for your family, and for the impact the family's capital has on the world. Key principles here include understanding that ownership is responsibility, and management is a distinct calling, not an entitlement.
Avoiding that us versus them mentality.
Precisely, avoiding the they-them management trustees versus us owners beneficiaries divide. Passive ownership often leads to paternalism from the managers and resentment from the owners. Owners' prime responsibility is a strategic focus on the growth of complete wealth, all five capitals, not just getting bogged down in short-term tactical problems. Educated, active ownership is the essential means for this long-term journey.
Transitions, then, must be a crucial challenge for these family enterprises. They seem inherently difficult.
They are arguably the crucial challenge. The book identifies 4 parallel sets of changes that happen during transitions. Changes in the family itself, births, deaths, marriages, changes in ownership structures, shifts in leadership, and broader societal changes.
And that trust wave you mentioned.
Yes, that's a significant point here, especially concerning ownership. By the third generation, 90% or more of a family's financial capital may be held in trust. While this can preserve financial capital, it often inadvertently deadens qualitative capital if beneficiaries become passive recipients rather than active owners.
So leadership needs to adapt.
Often, yes. Sustaining the family enterprise might require leaders to become leaders from behind, focusing on helping all members find their own paths and contributions rather than traditional leading in front, which can sometimes retard the development and individuation of other family members. This requires a very different mindset.
It sounds like it requires an incredibly long-term perspective.
Absolutely. Family enterprises must think in generations. The book suggests defining short-term as maybe 20 years, intermediate as 50 years, and long-term as 100 years or more. Success isn't a destination, it's a never-ending process of adaptation and growth across all capitals.
There's a lovely metaphor used here, the copper beech tree.
Ah, yes. It's a powerful closing image for the family enterprise chapter. A copper beech takes real courage to plant, knowing it takes maybe 150 years to fully mature. It requires good fortune to withstand storms and hazards, and constant care to protect it. It perfectly illustrates the long-term commitment needed. It reminds me of the Marshall Leotti story.
Tell us.
He asked his gardener to plant a certain tree, and the gardener objected, saying, "But, Marshall, this tree takes 100 years to mature." Leotti replied, "Then we must plant today. We have no time to waste."
Wonderful. A perfect illustration. Okay, let's talk about family meetings. These are often seen as, maybe stuffy, advisor-driven investment reviews. But the book suggests they should be the very heartbeat of family communication.
That's exactly right. They should be meetings for and by the family, focusing on complete wealth values, wishes, concerns, potential conflicts, education, celebration, not just financial updates delivered by advisors.
So what makes them successful?
The absolute key is preparation, not just throwing something together, but weeks, if not months, of lead time. This allows for identifying shared goals and relevant topics, crafting a clear agenda, maybe starting from an executive summary, and preparing and distributing materials in advance so people come ready to engage.
The authors break down the planning using the 6 W's: why, what, who, when, how, and where. Can you give some examples?
Sure. Asking why hold a meeting forces clarity. Is it to clarify shared values, make specific decisions, educate the next generation, celebrate milestones, share stories, resolve conflict, or address a specific issue like wealth distribution or business strategy? The why dictates everything else.
Okay, and what to do?
This can range widely, from telling family stories and learning about different communication styles, to understanding learning preferences, reviewing business or investment performance, visiting charities the family supports, learning about different roles, using hats, or conducting structured intergenerational dialogue. What does each generation want to share with and learn from the others?
Who to have seems critical.
Definitely. Obviously family members, but also consider trusted advisors, financial, legal, perhaps even family psychologists or consultants. A key point is discussing whether and how to invite spouses. The book argues strongly for inclusion, especially as they are raising the children amid wealth. And using outside facilitators can be invaluable, especially when starting out or navigating a crisis.
When to hold it?
Frequency depends on the family's needs, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. The book suggests maybe semi-annually initially, then settling into an annual rhythm. But whatever the frequency, building in frequent rest breaks during the meeting itself is absolutely crucial to maintain energy and focus.
And how to run effectively. This must involve managing potential conflict.
Yes. Plan for practicalities like childcare. Recognize different learning styles. Not everyone learns best from a lecture or a spreadsheet. And managing conflict is key. Distinguish healthy disagreement from inappropriate conflict. Seek to understand first before reacting. Name the source of the conflict if possible. Refer back to agreed-upon ground rules. Look for common ground. Affirm different values respectfully. And don't be afraid to take breaks when things get heated.
Ground rules seem important.
Very. Sample ground rules might include: be present, no electronics distraction. Be respectful, no eye-rolling, minimal profanity. Listen actively. Practice understanding before responding. Be patient. Not everything gets solved at once. Own your views using I statements. Be willing to edit what you say for clarity and kindness.
And finally, where to hold it? Does location matter?
The authors argue it matters quite a lot. Holding meetings in special places, resorts, rented homes, country clubs sends a powerful message that the family is investing in itself. It helps create positive shared memories. They strongly advise avoiding parental homes or business offices, as these often carry too much emotional baggage and power dynamics. Ensure the location is convenient, accessible, has adequate facilities, and allows enough time for relaxed travel.
This isn't just about the mechanics of meetings, though, is it? The book emphasizes the importance of the very stuff of life, family stories and rituals.
Exactly. Stories shape our past, present, and future identity. They are especially crucial for wealthy families to counteract the potential for silence around money or an overfocus on financial achievements. Stories ground the family in its shared humanity.
How can families prompt storytelling?
The book suggests simple prompts. Questions like, who played a significant role in your life and what did you learn from them? Or what has been your family's greatest challenge and how did you overcome it? Or simply, what story do you most want to pass on? Themes of resilience rising from failures or crises, the kindness of others, family quirkiness, moments of surprise, these are all powerful.
And it's important to share the tough stuff, too.
Yes, very important. Sharing hard stories models how to manage negative emotions constructively and avoids creating overly packaged or sanitized family narratives that don't feel authentic to the next generation.
What are some ways to share these stories?
Lots of ways. Gathered around a fire, having the oldest member recall stories told by their oldest relative, that seven-generation thinking again, structured intergenerational dialogues and meetings, having the rising generation formally interview grandparents, special grandparent-grandchild lunches, even privately sharing dirty secrets or past mistakes can build trust and connection.
And how do rituals fit into this? They're different from just ceremonies, right?
Yeah. Right. Rituals think of major life transitions like birth, coming of age, marriage, death. Do something specific. They break with the everyday routine, create a kind of sacred space where new knowledge or status can be imparted, and then mark the re-entry into ordinary life, but transformed. They aren't meant to constrain, rather, they create the conditions for human freedom and growth.
How can rituals be used in family meetings?
In simple but meaningful ways, beginning and ending meetings with expressions of hope or gratitude, having regular check-ins where people share updates on their lives, welcoming new members, like spouses, by having them share their dreams, maybe with slideshows, taking a moment to remember family members who have passed away.
The book mentions the unique role of aunts and uncles here.
Yes, particularly in coming-of-age rituals, aunts and uncles are often central figures. They might be the first adults to discuss wealth specifics with a young person or serve as informal mentors. Their unique position, close but not parental, gives them a special kind of influence and trustworthiness.
Shifting to another important enduring structure, the family mission statement. Why does this matter so much for a family enterprise?
It's identified as absolutely key to long-term family flourishing. It articulates a shared purpose, preventing the family from just wandering aimlessly from generation to generation. It provides the why behind the family staying together and the where-to for their collective efforts.
So what exactly is it? What does it include?
It's a statement that articulates the family's shared purpose, guides the rising generations, and ideally incorporates the unique contributions the family wants to make. It essentially answers, who are we as a family? What do we stand for, our values? What do we want to do together? And how will we accomplish our goals?
And who creates?
This is critical. To endure, it must be created or at least genuinely adopted by the whole family. Not just imposed by the patriarch or matriarch, though there are rare exceptions, like Henry Phipps's incredibly influential 1911 letter to his children, which served this purpose. Buy-in is everything. Brevity is usually a virtue for memorability, but appendices can be useful to define key terms, like what the family means by education or meaningful work.
How is it used once it's created?
It's a living document. It can be adapted for operating businesses, guide the work of family councils, inform philanthropic decisions, and often serves as the preamble to a more detailed family constitution. It should be read aloud at annual gatherings, revisited periodically, and revised as needed to reaffirm bonds and ensure it still resonates.
This all sounds like it builds towards establishing formal family governance, a framework that provides structure without stifling individual freedom. Sounds like a tricky balance.
It is the delicate balance, yes. The book emphasizes that governance must be approached with humility and a sense that structure, paradoxically, can increase freedom by providing clarity and predictability. Most families, it suggests, work best in a confederal way.
Confederal.
Meaning individual branches or nuclear families retain authority over most matters, with only a few key decisions shared centrally. This preserves autonomy while honoring connection. It avoids an overly federal or centralized model, which can feel stifling. And importantly, these agreements need to be renewed with each generation through a horizontal social compact, ensuring governance remains positively attractive to current and future members, not just something inherited passively.
Our colleague Patricia Angus has a useful framework here, the 3 Ps.
Yes, Patricia Angus's 3 Ps really help clarify the different layers of governance. 1, principles. These are the family's enduring vision, mission, and values. The why. 2, policies. These are the formal documents like the family constitution, trust documents, buy-sell agreements. They change, but usually only with major life events. The what. 3, practices. These are the activities like family meetings, educational programs, the executive summary process for communication. These can come and go as needed. The how.
And there's a hierarchy.
Crucially, yes. Practices need policies to guide them, and policies need principles to give them meaning and traction. You can't just jump to practices without the underlying foundation.
So the family constitution is a central policy document. What does it typically contain, and what are the key bodies within this governance structure?
The Constitution usually starts with that statement of purpose or mission. Clearly defines who is considered family, SG, descendants, spouses, eligibility criteria, outlines shared family values, and sets ground rules for interaction. The central bodies often include the Family Assembly, which is like the body politic comprising all family members over a certain age. It typically elects the council, holds the power to amend the Constitution, and serves as the forum for major strategic discussions, like selling a legacy company. It captures the spirit of the family.
Okay, the assembly is the whole group. Then there's a smaller body.
Right, the Family Council. This is the executive body, the engine room, expressing the voice of the family and implementing its decisions. It answers to the Family Assembly, not directly to shareholders or trustees. Its responsibilities usually include planning meetings, reviewing business investment performance, recommending policy amendments, overseeing education initiatives, managing communication, handling budgets for family activities, etc.
And the Wisdom Council fits in here too.
Yes, some families integrate a wisdom council, as we discussed under elders, providing that non-executive wisdom, mediation function, and connection to lineage, separate from the day-to-day work of the family council.
Designing and ratifying such a system sounds like a major undertaking.
It takes time and deliberate effort. Designing it involves focusing on the family council's purpose, its actual authority. Is it purely advisory, or does it have binding decision-making power in certain areas? Its formation and structure, selection process, eligibility, size, terms, officers, subcommittees, and how it will communicate effectively with the broader family assembly.
And getting everyone to agree, the ratification.
That's a deliberate process in itself. It often starts with a family retreat focused on fundamental questions. Why should we stay together as an enterprise family? What are our collective strengths and weaknesses? Then, a smaller working group might be tasked with polling the broader family, engaging members, drafting the Constitution, and providing regular updates. Finally, a specific ratification meeting is held dedicated time for learning, vigorous discussion, and an open, transparent vote.
And celebration is important.
Absolutely crucial as a ritual step. Celebrating the ratification, maybe with a story from family history, a moment of reflective silence, reading a relevant poem, the formal signing, electing the first council members, marks the transition and reinforces the commitment.
And the true benefit of going through all this governance work. What's the payoff?
It's genuinely transformative when done well. It helps shift potentially patriarchal structures towards collaborative agreements. It turns abstract legal structures into living human relationships. It replaces ambiguity and assumptions with transparency and clarity. It evolves rigid rules into adaptable principles. And it integrates fragmented documents and decisions into a cohesive, integrated system. Ultimately, it's about empowering the family to flourish together intentionally across generations.
Okay, let's turn now to financial capital specifically, but maybe looking at it in a way that goes beyond just chasing traditional market returns. The book discusses the loser's game critique of investing, this idea that for many individual investors, trying to constantly beat the market is often self-deluding because their collective actions make the market.
Right. And this critique has led to two main responses in the investment world. One is the rise of indexing, essentially saying if you can't beat the market, be the market. Just aim for average market returns with low costs.
Okay, passive investing.
Exactly. The other response is the rise of hedge funds and other active strategies that explicitly seek to differentiate themselves, to express a specific point of view, take a stand, and achieve specific financial ends separate from the overall market. The book suggests that this latter approach, having specific goals and differentiating, is perhaps a more consistent philosophical response for families trying to align their capital with their unique long-term human purposes rather than just mirroring the mass market.
So it's about taking a human approach, ensuring financial capital serves the qualitative capital.
Precisely. Families who can maintain that focus on human ends and purposes, not just maximizing financial return in a vacuum, are better positioned to ensure their financial capital truly fuels their overall complete wealth and well-being.
So, with that human focus in mind, the book highlights two specific, maybe less common, practices for impactful financial management within a family context. The first is investor allocation. What's that about?
Investor allocation is a really interesting strategic way to allocate the types of family financial assets held by different individual members or trusts, specifically to maximize long-term growth while minimizing transfer taxes, estate, gift, and generation skipping transfer GST taxes.
Minimizing taxes by deciding who owns what.
Exactly. The authors make the slightly provocative point that the IRS actually smiles when older, wealthier family members hold the assets expected to have the highest growth. Why? Because the IRS knows it will likely collect more than half of that growth in estate taxes when that person passes away.
Ouch. So the strategy flips that.
Right. The strategy is essentially for the oldest family members, or trusts benefiting them, to hold the assets expected to have the lowest growth, like bonds or cash. And the youngest family members, or ideally long-term tax-exempt trusts established for their benefit, should acquire the assets expected to have the highest growth, like private equity or venture capital. This aligns the investments with the family's very long-term, say, 100-year investment horizon for the younger generations and trusts versus the shorter, maybe 20-year horizon for older members.
That makes sense strategically, but how do you implement it? How do the high-growth assets get to the younger generation or trusts?
This requires what the book calls bold trustees, who have broad investment discretion within trusts and are willing to implement such a strategy. But often, the most practical and tax-efficient way is for the older generation to make formal arm's-length loans at federally prescribed interest rates to the younger generation members, or, more commonly, to those long-term tax-exempt trusts.
Well,
Yes. These loans are then used by the trust or younger person to purchase the high-growth assets. This structure achieves several goals. It provides current interest income back to the older generation. It effectively caps the future growth of those assets within the older generation's taxable estate. And it allows all the future appreciation above the loan interest rate to accumulate inside the tax-exempt trust, maximizing the overall family balance sheet growth over the long term.
fascinating. Okay, the second practice mentioned is the family bank. This sounds like an interesting concept for fostering entrepreneurship within the family.
It is. A family bank is essentially a formal system, often structured as an LLC or a partnership with clear governance rules, set up to facilitate intra-family lending. It offers patient capital, often more flexible than commercial banks, and can really foster an entrepreneurial spirit across generations.
What are the benefits beyond just providing loans?
Well, structured properly, it encourages financial discipline and responsibility among borrowers. It provides needed liquidity within the family system. Crucially, it serves as an excellent educational tool, teaching rising generations about credit analysis, loan structuring, risk management, and it can be tailored to the family's values, perhaps including enhancement loans with subsidized rates for projects aligned with the public good, or making mission-related investments alongside traditional loans.
Moving from finance to something very tangible, a family vacation home. This often feels like the ultimate gift with spirit, embodying memories and connection. But preserving one across generations can be incredibly challenging.
Oh, incredibly so. While the memories tied to a beloved family retreat are often cherished, the reality is these properties are usually illiquid, expensive to maintain, legally complex to own jointly, and can become flashpoints for intense interpersonal conflict. As the book bluntly states, culture eats structure for dinner.
Meaning the legal documents aren't enough.
Not even close. Even the most perfectly drafted LLC operating agreement or trust structure won't preserve the home harmoniously if the family doesn't actively nurture its human relationships and the culture surrounding the property. It really comes down to the family's qualitative capital.
So what does that supportive culture look like in practice regarding a shared home?
It means cultivating those 100-year family habits we talked about. Open learning and sharing, transparent financial discussions about the home's costs, high levels of trust, and an expectation of active contribution from everyone who uses it. Specific habits for vacation homes might include fairly sharing duties and costs, consciously telling stories about the home's history, maybe through pictures or guest books, cultivating a sense of specialness with reunions or traditions, recognizing that the family and the property are separate entities. The home serves the family, not the other way around. And being a good host, especially welcoming to spouses and new family members.
And if that supportive culture just isn't there or can't be built?
Then the book advises facing reality. Have the open, honest conversation about possibly selling the property. Sometimes the parents simply raising this possibility can come as a huge relief to the rising generation, who might feel burdened by the expectation but afraid to say so. The ultimate question isn't just, can we afford it, but is taking on this particular challenge right for our family at this time?
That's a powerful and potentially liberating question. Okay, let's talk about family philanthropy. This seems like a natural extension of the whole complete family wealth concept, giving back.
Absolutely. It's presented as a real powerhouse, benefiting not just society, but significantly benefiting the family itself. Societally, family philanthropy can be a potent force for good-shaping values, supporting communities, connecting otherwise isolated families to larger world issues, offering patient capital, taking risks, modeling generosity. Virginia Esposito's work is highlighted here.
And the benefits for the family.
These are profound. Philanthropy provides a natural platform for positive, multi-generational conversations, where elders share legacy and values, and the rising generation brings fresh perspectives and energy. It's a powerful way to transfer values and build family togetherness around a shared positive purpose, shifting the focus from who gets what to what can we do together for others. It teaches practical skills in giving, governance, and collaboration. And it can create a healthy sense of legacy, countering entitlement with a feeling of being part of a larger whole.
How does philanthropy fit into the overall family governance structure?
Ideally, it's integrated at multiple levels. There might be a specific section on philanthropic values and goals in the family mission statement. It should be considered as part of the family's overall qualitative capital on the family balance sheet. And often, families create a formal organization for their giving, whether it's a private foundation, a donor-advised fund, DAF, or a simpler giving circle with its own budget and decision-making process.
How does a family get started or deepen its philanthropic efforts?
The book suggests starting with reflection, asking questions like, what are our personal or family giving traditions? Do we see giving as an obligation or a choice? What organizations or causes do we already support individually? What leadership roles might family members want to take?
Engaging the rising generation seems particularly important, but also potentially tricky, especially if they're focused on their own individuation journey.
It is key, and it needs to be handled thoughtfully. The approach should be open and inviting, genuinely seeking their input and energy rather than presenting them with pre-allocated funds decided by older generations, which can be a major turnoff. It's important to acknowledge their developmental needs. That drive for individuation might initially outweigh a strong focus on giving back, and that's okay.
What about different approaches?
Consider exploring areas like impact investing or sustainable investing, which often resonate strongly with younger generations seeking tangible change. And crucially, allow them space to learn from their own choices, even if some initial grants or investments turn out to be disappointing. Resist the urge to be overly critical. The long-term goal is to instill the habit and joy of giving.
This reminds me of Aristotle's concept of magnificence, which the book brings up. It's not just charity, is it?
No, it's broader. Magnificence, as Aristotle described it, is a virtue associated with spending large amounts appropriately, not just on traditional charity, but also on things like civic contributions or even socially responsible investing. The key is that magnificence is fitting. It suits the person giving, the recipient or cause, and the occasion. Done well, it evokes wonder, inspires reflection and hope, and brings people together. And importantly, Aristotle also noted that philanthropists, in a profound sense, need recipients for their own flourishing. The well-being of those served is the true end that completes the act of magnificent giving.
So ultimately, all of these efforts, redefining wealth, understanding roles, building structures, managing finances wisely, giving back, they all seem to lead towards one ultimate goal: individual flourishing. That sense of living a full, meaningful life. It's deeply personal, of course, but the book suggests it's also, perhaps surprisingly, definable.
Indeed. While the experience is subjective, the authors point to common elements we associate with flourishing: thriving, growing, being vibrant, abundant, conscious, full of life. To help get a handle on this, they adapt Dr. Barry Grief's 5 L's, framing them as a kind of portfolio of flourishing that individuals can cultivate.
The 5 L's, what are they?
First is learn. This taps into that fundamental human desire to know, to understand. As someone said, I grow older always learning, Aristotle. All human beings by nature desire to know. Second is labor. This means finding meaningful work, paid or unpaid, that engages your strengths and contributes to others' benefit. It's about purpose and contribution.
Okay, learn and labor.
Third is love. Absolutely central to human happiness, the challenge being maintaining genuine human connection and intimacy, even amidst the complexities wealth can bring. Fourth is laugh. Humor, playfulness, that vital release from seriousness. It's an equalizer, a balm to pain, essential for perspective.
Learn, labor, love, laugh. And the fifth.
The fifth is perhaps the most profound. Leave, or maybe better put, let go. This is about relieving suffering by letting go of attachments, expectations, outcomes. Finding peace and allowing flourishing by accepting things as they are, including our own mortality.
That's a powerful portfolio. Learn, labor, love, laugh, let go.
And reflecting on which of these come easiest to you, which are hardest, and how your family might help you cultivate them, or how you might help others in your family. That's an important part of the individual journey towards flourishing.
So, this idea of flourishing is deeply personal, but it's also something we can intentionally cultivate. And listening to those 5 L's, it brings us right back to those 4 C's we discussed earlier: control, commitment, challenge, and community. It makes sense, doesn't it, that these are the very pillars of resilience that help us thrive, especially when wealth itself can sometimes, paradoxically, undermine them.
It absolutely does make sense. The 4 C's are the building blocks of resilience and self-efficacy. That core belief that you can cope, you can make a difference, you can do it. They stand in direct opposition to feelings of powerlessness, alienation, threat, and isolation.
And wealth can push you towards those negative feelings.
Paradoxically, yes. Great financial capital can push individuals toward the opposites of the 4 C's. You might feel powerless to preserve or manage the wealth responsibly, alienated from peers who don't share your circumstances, threatened by people who might want something from you, or isolated by your riches, unable to form authentic connections.
So how do you apply the 4 C's to the 5 L's?
You can consciously assess where am I on the spectrum for each of the 4 C's in relation to key life situations, including the 5 L's. Do I feel a sense of control in my learning? Am I truly committed to my labor? Do I embrace challenge in my relationships? Love. Can I find community and laughter and letting go? Bringing intentionality to strengthening those 4 C's across the domains of the 5 L's is a practical way to move closer to genuine flourishing.
As we near the end of our deep dive today, one of the authors, Susan Massenzio, shared 3 powerful words of wisdom in the book that seem to encapsulate so much of this entire journey.
Yes, these 3 words really resonate. They are: 1, humility. Recognizing that the journey of complete family wealth is inherently hard. It requires adopting a beginner's mind, acknowledging that even with decades of experience, we often find ourselves starting anew when dealing with complex family and money matters. There are no easy answers. 2, empathy. Not just having empathy for others in the family, which is crucial, but also profoundly having empathy for yourself. Self-compassion is absolutely vital because the journey of life, and especially navigating family wealth, is inevitably filled with missteps, regrets, and learning experiences. 3, hope. This is the underlying fuel, isn't it? The essential ingredient that keeps us engaged, keeps us striving, keeps us moving forward on this challenging yet ultimately rewarding path towards greater well-being for ourselves and our families.
Humility, empathy, hope. Powerful anchors. Looking ahead now, what does the future hold for family wealth? The authors highlight some intriguing evolutions, particularly in human development, that families need to be aware of.
Yes, they point to several key shifts. First, the recognition of emergent adulthood, that period from late teens through the 20s, as a distinct developmental stage with huge impact. Old appeals to stewardship might not resonate as strongly with this group focused on identity exploration. Second, late middle age is becoming an extended period where the dilemma of generativity versus stagnation plays out, deeply influencing philanthropy, the economy, and family dynamics.
And no bishop.
There's a growing seriousness about cultivating eldership within families, not just acknowledging seniors, but actively developing the wisdom roles we discussed. The West might have much to learn from Eastern societies here, and related to demographics, declining birth rates in many parts of the older the world mean fewer children supporting more elders, putting a strain on the traditional social compact. This makes maximizing a family's qualitative capital, its ability to care for members and contribute wisely, even more critical for both family and societal well-being.
Any other shifts in how we understand family wealth?
One interesting trend is the emerging focus on learning as a core family activity, going beyond just formal education. The book anticipates the rise of a Chief Learning Officer, or CLO function within family systems, analogous to a Chief Investment Officer, CIO. This role would be dedicated to ensuring continuous learning, skill building, and capacity development for all family members across generations.
And the role of China in this future landscape is particularly interesting, given its unique situation.
Very much so. China has seen immense growth in private wealth relatively recently, but often with a historical lack of preparation for intergenerational transfer due to events like the Cultural Revolution and the one-child policy. Consequently, vast amounts of wealth are set to transfer with almost no prior family experience in managing it. Many first-generation wealth creators are struggling with intergenerational clashes and, in some cases, desires among the next generation to emigrate. There's huge potential for China to adapt and innovate on Western ideas about family wealth, and conversely, for Western families to learn from China's unique challenges and solutions as they emerge.
So in navigating these complex and often uncertain times, whether it's economic volatility, geopolitical shifts, or internal family dynamics, the book offers a set of really practical key practices for both families and individuals to enhance resilience.
Yes, it concludes with a very useful toolkit, essentially. These practices include developing awareness of your own emotional hot buttons, like frustration, fear, sadness, anger, and consciously assuming good intent in others while cultivating good intent in yourself, understanding your own and others' communication styles, like drivers, analytics, expressives, amiables, and how stress makes these styles more rigid.
What else?
Finding the right balance between togetherness and separateness as a family, making time for genuine dialogue about serious matters, regularly reviewing and adapting family governance structures, maximizing the support you get from your advisor utilization, really leveraging your family office and external advisors, prioritizing basic physical care, nutrition, exercise, relaxation, fostering quality social connections for support.
And internal resources.
Crucially, practicing mind training, being your own psychologist, assessing your feelings realistically, asking, is what I'm saying to myself useful right now? Reflecting on past resilience. And finally, perhaps most importantly, cultivating gratitude. Actively expressing gratitude, even or especially in difficult times, for what one still has, for the relationships that matter most. It's a powerful antidote to anxiety and negativity. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. What a deep and wide-ranging journey we've taken today. From fundamentally redefining wealth far beyond just money, to understanding the vital, complex human roles played by each family member, parents, children, spouses, elders, through building enduring governance structures and implementing savvy, purpose-driven financial strategies, all of it really, culminating in that ultimate goal of individual and collective flourishing. It's so clear that complete family wealth is truly about well-being, shared purpose, and creating enduring relationships across generations.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, we hope, was designed to equip you, our listener, with some powerful insights and tools, things to reflect on regarding your own family's wealth journey, whatever stage you're at.
Yeah. Whether you're navigating inherited wealth, actively creating it now, or simply exploring those profound connections between well-being and resources in your own life, hopefully these ideas offer a valuable framework for thought and maybe action.
It's a lifelong process of learning and adapting.
So let's consider that copper beech tree metaphor one last time. You might not see it fully grown in your lifetime, but its roots run deep, its branches stretch wide, and it can outlive generations. The question for reflection is, what kind of tree are you planting and tending for your family's complete wealth, knowing that its truest blossoms may well be seen by those who follow long after your own efforts have become part of its enduring story?
And as you continue on that unique journey of understanding and building complete family wealth, remember those three words: embrace humility, cultivate empathy for others and yourself, and hold on to hope, as Marshall Udy reminded us about planting that tree.
There is no time to waste.
Thanks for tuning in to the Book Summary Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe for more summaries, and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Want deeper insights, exclusive book notes, and reading tips? Join our free newsletter. The link's in the description. And don't forget, if you'd like to read the full book, our affiliate link is right below. It helps support the channel and keeps the summaries coming. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing.